Good morning, everyone. My topic is organophosphorus poisoning, and my moderator is Dr. Altaf. So, what is an organophosphorus compound? It is a potent cholinesterase inhibitor. It causes severe cholinergic toxicity following cutaneous exposure, inhalation, or ingestion. As you can see, organophosphate and carbamate are similar in their chemistry, and hence organophosphate and carbamate poisonings are usually discussed together. There is also something called organophosphorone, which is similar to organophosphate, but it lacks the sulfur group and instead is bound to 4 oxygen molecules. So, what is their medical application? In neostigmine, pyridostigmine, and edrophonium are used as reversal of neuromuscular blockade. And in treatment of glaucoma, myasthenia, and Alzheimer's disease, we can also use ecothiopate, pyridostigmine, tacrine, and donepezil. So, source of toxicity. These are the organophosphates and carbamates that are normally the cause of poisonings that we see here. The mechanism of action. So they are well absorbed through skin, lungs, and GI tract, and they bind to the enzyme acetylcholinesterase. So acetylcholinesterase is responsible for this reaction. It converts acetylcholine to acetic acid and choline. If this step is blocked, there is accumulation of acetylcholine at the neuronal synapses and the neuromuscular junction, which causes the adverse effects. So, organophosphorus compounds also inhibit plasma cholinesterase and neuropathy target esterase. This is implicated in other mechanisms. There is also something called aging that the OP compound undergoes. So, when it binds to the enzyme, it undergoes change such that it becomes irreversibly resistant to reactivation of oximes. That means that when the OP compound binds to the enzyme, there is a window of period where oximes can be administered, and it causes reversal of this binding, and acetylcholinesterase is free to break down the acetylcholine. If it ages, then it becomes irreversibly resistant. The dimethyl compounds undergo rapid aging, and diethyl compounds exhibit delayed toxicity. So based on what the patient has consumed, we can determine whether to administer oxime or not. Carbamates are transient cholinesterase inhibitors. They spontaneously hydrolyze from the enzyme site in 48 hours, and hence they have shorter duration of toxicity. So the onset of clinical features depends on the acetylcholine esterase inhibition rate, the route of absorption. Oral or respiratory agent exhibits clinical features within 3 hours, and dermal absorption exhibits clinical features up to 12 hours. The enzymatic conversion to active metabolites and the lipophilicity. The lipophilic agents have rapid fat uptake and delayed redistribution from fat stores. So they can have a delayed onset of symptoms till up to 5 days, and they can have prolonged illness up to 30 days as the fat stores can keep breaking down and releasing the poison. An overview of the clinical features. There is an acute cholinergic excess phase. There is something called the intermediate syndrome, and there is something called OP-induced delayed neuropathy. So in acute cholinergic excess phase, these are the symptoms that patient has. These are the muscarinic symptoms that the patient has. So salivation, lacrimation, urination, defecation, and gastric emesis, which are all excessive production of bodily fluids, and BBB, bradycardia, bronchoria, and bronchospasm. Intermediate syndrome occurs from 24 to 96 hours. It is characterized by neck flexion weakness, decreased deep tendon reflexes, and bulbar weakness. Proximal muscle weakness is also seen, and respiratory insufficiency is what ultimately causes the demise of the patient. The OP-induced delayed neuropathy can occur after 1 to 3 weeks of exposure. It causes transient painful stocking glove paresthesias, symmetric motor polyneuropathy, affects distal muscles more than proximal muscles, and flaccidity of lower limbs occurs first, then it progresses to upper limb. So in the acute toxicity, these are the mechanisms, these are the points at which acetylcholine esterase is blocked, and the acetylcholine accumulates and hence causes the cholinergic excess symptoms. So in the parasympathetic chain, if acetylcholine accumulates, that is what causes the bradycardia, bronchoconstriction, meiosis, and smooth muscle contraction. In the sympathetic chain, it causes diaphoresis, mydriasis, tachycardia, hypertension, and bronchodilation. And in the somatic nervous system, fasciculations and weakness is caused because of this. And in the CNS, when it acts on the nicotinic receptors, it can cause agitation, confusion, coma, seizures, and respiratory depression. So, like I said, muscarinic signs are the excessive bodily fluid, salivation, lacrimation, urination, defecation, gastric emesis. BBB stands for bradycardia, bronchoria, and bronchospasm. The nicotinic effects are fasciculations, muscle weakness, and paralysis. It can also cause cardiac arrhythmias, heart block, and QTC prolongation, and respiratory failure can be caused due to the depression of the CNS center, neuromuscular weakness, excessive secretions, and bronchoconstriction. So these are the four mechanisms by which respiratory failure occurs in a patient with OP poisoning: depression of CNS center, neuromuscular weakness, excessive secretions, and bronchoconstriction. So what is intermediate syndrome? It's a distinct neurological disorder that develops 24 to 96 hours after exposure and after the resolution of cholinergic excess phase. This happens with the OP compounds which are highly fat soluble and may be related to the inadequate doses of oximes. Uh, and characteristic neurological findings are neck flexion weakness, decreased DTRs, cranial nerve abnormalities, usually bulbar palsy, proximal muscle weakness, and respiratory insufficiency. It can be managed by only supportive care and prolonged mechanical ventilation. There can be complete resolution of neurological dysfunction in 2 to 3 weeks. And RBC acetylcholinesterase levels can be measured, which can correlate to clinical improvement. If we do a nerve conduction study in these patients, it will have a unique post-synaptic abnormalities. Delayed and long-term neuropathology. So OP-induced delayed neuropathy can occur up to 1 to 3 weeks after ingestion of specific OP agents. Carbamates are rarely associated with them, and the OP compounds which are associated with this are chlorpyrifos, leptofos, and malathion. It may involve the inhibition of the neuropathy target esterase, which is found in the brain, peripheral nerves, and lymphocytes. It causes transient painful stocking glove paresthesias and followed by symmetric motor polyneuropathy. There is a characteristic flaccid weakness of the lower extremities which ascends to involve the upper extremities. Sensory disturbances are only mild and it affects the distal muscle groups more than the proximal muscle groups. If we do an NCV in these patients, there is decreased firing of motor conduction units will be found. On histopathology, there is Wallerian degeneration of the large distal axon. Mild cases improve with time, but some cases which like if they have UMN syndrome with spasticity of lower limb can have permanent disability. The neurobehavioral deficits also can be seen like decreased memory, abstraction, and Parkinsonism. So how do you diagnose a patient with OP poisoning? It's a clinical diagnosis, and if you examine the contents of the stomach when we do initial aspiration, there can be a petroleum or garlic-like odor. Trial of 1 gram of atropine can be given in adults. So, in absence of signs of and symptoms of anticholinergic effects of atropine, we can assume that the patient has poison with OP poisoning. So, if basically this means if patient doesn't have tachycardia, mydriasis, decreased bowel sounds, or dry skin after giving 1 milligram of atropine, then we can assume that patient is poisoned with OP compounds. Other laboratory tests that can be done are RBC acetylcholinesterase, which measures the direct activity, and sequential measurement can be done to see the effectiveness of the oxime therapy. Coming to initial management, 100% oxygenation should be maintained via face mask, or we should go for early intubation for patients with low GCS. While inducing for intubation, we should avoid succinylcholine because it prolongs the neuromuscular blockade in poison patients. And adequate volume resuscitation with isotonic crystalloids should be done. And patient should be decontaminated. So aggressive dermal and ocular irrigation should be done. The clothing should be discarded. And if patient has come within 1 hour of ingestion, activated charcoal can be given, 50 gram in adults, after intubation for protection of airway. So activated charcoal should be administered after the airway has been protected. Rarely patients can present with seizures. Do not use phenytoin in these patients. Drug of choice is diazepam 10 mg IV stat. So cholinergic toxicity. Atropine is a drug of choice. It competes with acetylcholine at muscarinic receptors and it prevents cholinergic activation. 2 to 5 milligram IV stat can be given initially, and it has to be doubled every 3 to 5 minutes. We double the atropine dose till we reach the therapeutic endpoint of clearing respiratory secretions and cessation of bronchoconstriction. Uh, what we should note here is that other endpoints of giving atropine, like tachycardia and mydriasis, should not be considered as adequate atropinization. The therapeutic endpoint should be the respiratory endpoints, like clearing the secretions and cessation of the bronchoconstriction. Till then, we have to keep increasing the atropine. Up to 100 mg of atropine also may be required, so we should keep giving atropine. Followed by, if patient requires infusion, we can start on IV infusion as well. Palidoxim therapy is also something that we should consider when the patient has come early after ingesting the poison. IV bolus of 30 mg per kg in adults according to WHO should be given slowly over 30 minutes, followed by 8 mg per kg per hour. Usually we give it up to 5 days, after which oxime is not said to be of much benefit, as all the OP poison which is bound to the acetylcholine esterase enzyme has already said to age, and that means irreversibly be bound. So if patient has come early, we can administer oxime, but only up to a certain point of time. It's a cholinesterase reactivating agent, and it treats both muscarinic and nicotinic symptoms. This is one of the reasons why we should think about pralidoxim therapy, because atropine only antagonizes the muscarinic symptoms. Pralidoxim antagonizes both the muscarinic and nicotinic symptoms. It should be given concurrently with atropine. It is not a monotherapy. It should be always given along with atropine. It prevents worsening of symptoms due to transient oxime-induced acetylcholine esterase inhibition. So oxime is transiently can cause enzyme inhibition, which is already causing the cholinergic toxicity. Hence, atropine should be given so that the symptoms do not worsen. Pralidoxim administration does not prevent intermediate syndrome or OP-induced delayed neuropathy. Thank you.